Both Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water do something that, from a screenwriting perspective, doesn't make any sense. Right in the middle of the movie, they both stop all plot development and show a long sequence where, at first glance, it seems like nothing important happens. Characters spend a huge chunk of the movie either flying or swimming around. No plot development, no tension, no arc. A scene that could be completely cut without affecting the story. These scenes are my favorite part of both movies, but James Cameron actually had to fight hard to keep the flying sequence in the first Avatar. According to Cameron, the studio execs said the scene went against basic storytelling principles on how to pace a movie.
And they were complaining about the flying scenes. Why does this flying scene go on so long? You've already proved the point, it doesn't advance the narrative, it doesn't advance the character. I said, you're right on every count, you've ticked every box, like a good studio executive.
But if those executives were right about the scene not advancing the narrative or the characters, why keep the long flying scene in the first one, and the even longer underwater scene in the second one? And why does keeping them long work so well? To fully understand how the studio execs got Avatar wrong, let's first talk about pacing.
1, 2, 3, get up! Next!
People use the word pacing to describe movies all the time. There's fast-paced movies, which have lots of action or quick-witted humor, and then there's the badly paced movies, which is often just a catch-all for a movie someone didn't like, especially if they found it slow or boring. Avatar clearly falls under the fast-paced category with its frequent and incredible action sequences, which makes a slower scene like the flying sequence stand out that much more. Yet for a word that's used so often, pacing is actually pretty difficult to define. Common definitions will say it's a movie's speed, how fast it unfolds, but that's just a word that means the same thing as pace, and speed doesn't explain what makes a movie's pacing good or bad. Yet the concept is crucial to making scenes work, and filmmakers regularly grapple with the pace of their scenes.
There used to be these beautiful drone shots of Dave and Maddie riding on this motorcycle. Then you put the scene together and the scene's too long, and it's just, well, here are the gunshots, see him arrive. Pacing-wise, we also kind of want to get to the island and get to the mystery.
So whether you're doing drone shots in Glass Onion or flying shots in Avatar, the success of your scene seems to depend on this hard-to-define idea of pace. So how do you nail it down? The answer lies in perhaps the fastest-paced movie of all time. So let's get the party started.
Herr Kapellmeister! More rock and roll!
The movie 123 moves at an almost impossible speed, and that's no accident. Writer-director Billy Wilder wanted to make a comedy where the fast pacing was itself a joke. In his words, just the speed was funny.
I want you to paint this crest on the door of a car. How long will it take? That's too long.
But the speed of this movie doesn't just come from quick dialogue. It's in the framing, the narrative, and even just a well-timed camera move.
Bye.
Bye. Missy, wait a minute, Phyllis.
There is a sort of a misconception that pace and speaking quickly is the same thing. You can have pace by people not speaking quickly. It depends on the cut. It depends on the rhythm of the thing.
We want right of inspection. I veto it. I thought so.
Throughout 123, James Cagney famously rattles off line after line of impossibly complicated orders to get Otto transformed into an aristocrat.
Tight, not too wide, not too narrow, not too fancy.
But you don't need quick dialogue for a fast pace. While the stylists get Otto ready, even more characters enter the room, making the frame even busier. Billy Wilder also sticks to the master and avoids close-ups, giving our eye too much to look at all at once, and we end up with a Renaissance painting on steroids. It's not just that the dialogue is fast or we get huge camera movements, it's the combination of all the small movements within the frame that makes it so busy. Billy Wilder also has the camera move with the action, even if it's subtle, so we can sense the movement without necessarily noticing it.
Wait! Who's paying for this foolishness?
123 has the conventional speed that we associate with fast pace, but sequences like these also show why pacing isn't such a simple concept to define. Many of the scenes are actually pretty long, and they don't always have fast dialogue or rapid camera movements. Whether or not a scene feels like it goes for too long depends on more than just character dialogue or camera speed. It depends on harder to generalize elements of the scene, like shot composition, carefully choreographed movement, and editing.
To hell with the revolution, and to hell with Khrushchev!
The hell with Frank Sinatra.
So when Avatar studio execs said the flying scene went too long, I think they missed the point, because the setup and technical execution of the flying sequence actually makes it literally and figuratively fly by. In the scene, Jake Sully goes up to the Hallelujah Mountains to tame and fly his own mountain banshee as part of his initiation into the tribe. At the very start, the scene uses contrast to create a sense of scale. We first see the effort it takes to get to the top of these huge mountains. Then Jake has to navigate a small, cramped rock, and finally he soars through the mountains once difficult to get through. In the flying flying itself, Cameron alternates between wide flying shots and close-ups, capturing both the visual spectacle and the moment's emotional core. This alternating focus adds tension, like when we focus on Jake so we don't see the obstacles until he does. And this buildup also leads to visual payoffs. When Jake gets the hang of flying, the camera finally slows down, and both Jake and the viewer earn the incredible wide shots the scene is now famous for.
Shut up and fly straight!
Because this flying exists after those high stakes and initial failures, the length of the sequence feels natural. We enjoy seeing Jake master what once almost killed him.
Oh, shit!
Avatar and 123 are completely different movies, yet they both create a fast pace despite having long, drawn-out scenes. Getting auto-prepared in 123 happens in a single office with mostly simple wide shots, and the flying scene in Avatar isn't very complicated compared to the movie's other action scenes. But neither feels too long, because they earn their simplicity. Wilder creates fast pace through character blocking and subtle camera moves, and Cameron creates fast pace through tension and contrast. These long scenes in such fast-paced movies expose the paradox at the core of pacing. Fast pacing isn't about going fast, it's about knowing when not to. In the book Empty Moments, Professor Leo Charney talks about how movies often present their narratives as a series of emotional highs and lows, which helps create a sense of progression, tension, and resolution. This idea, which Charney refers to as peaks and valleys, means storytelling requires slower moments so that the viewer can appreciate and digest the fast ones. And Billy Wilder understood this concept all too well. When describing 123, he said, "Let's make the fastest picture in the world, and give the actors, in order to make it seem fast, some slower scenes too. For every chaotic scene, there is a slower one, like Mac and Phyllis arguing about their marriage or a long take of slow dancing. And slowness even happens within the fast scenes themselves. The later dancing sequence may seem like non-stop speed, but it feels that much more chaotic because of the contrast within the scene itself, its peaks and its valleys." Up until the flying scene in Avatar, all the movie's world building has created more peaks than valleys. For the first time, the viewer doesn't have to see or learn something new, and like Jake himself, all that previous knowledge of the world can finally sink in. But there's more to it than that. The studio execs seem to only recall the flying itself, but in the scene's supposed downtime, we also get setups for future payoffs. Through the flying, we see Jake's still uneasy relationship with the rest of the tribe, and his growing relationship with Neytiri. We also fly past the Tree of Souls and several animals on Pandora that become crucial to the story later on. So the subtlety of pace means that even within the valleys, we get productivity. We can both enjoy the downtime and also use that time to better appreciate the future peaks. It's from this idea of peaks and valleys that we can really understand what pacing means. It's the rhythm of a story. Like rhythm in music, storytelling has periods of emphasis and periods of silence, of peaks and valleys. Film criticism actually borrows a lot of words from music to describe storytelling. Words like rhythm, story beats, or even a crescendo. Because good stories naturally have a sort of musical flow, which leads to a strange phenomenon. Lots of well-paced movies not only have a strong, diegetic relationship with their musical score, but characters even perform the score within the story itself. Once you're on the lookout for this, it shows up everywhere. In 123, Fräulein sings the movie's main theme. And in Mad Max Fury Road, this happens. And Avatar does the same thing. The Na'vi move with the pulsing of the earth and the score. And that synchronicity between the world and the score itself shows the superhuman relationship the Na'vi have with Pandora. I'm not saying a movie with a strong relationship with its score automatically has better pacing. What I am saying is that if the score does blend into the editing, the pace, or the story itself, then that means the movie synchronized all its elements together, which tends to lead to well-paced movies like 123, Whiplash, and Avatar. And I think this idea shows what good pacing really means. Good pacing is like a well-designed roller coaster ride, a symphony of techniques with the peaks and valleys working together, knowing when to speed up and when to slow down.
Movies can start to feel slow, right? You got to play it just right.
Well, hopefully the idea is you're creating rhythm.
Yeah.
And you're sailing on that rhythm, and you're going with that rhythm, and you can break up the rhythms and everything, but that's what's stopping it from just being a talky drag.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
But if you ask James Cameron why he kept the flying scene so long, he doesn't talk about creating rhythm and knowing how to handle it. In fact, he mentions a director who rejected the idea entirely.
You've ticked every box, like a good studio executive. But guess what? I want to see it. And I extrapolate from that, and Stanley Kubrick was a firm proponent of this principle. If I want to see it, my cognitive leap is there are going to be lots of people that want to see it.
Does the concept of peaks and valleys even apply to a director like Stanley Kubrick? Consider his 1987 film Full Metal Jacket. The first 45 minutes take place at boot camp before soldiers ship off to Vietnam, and the two main characters, Private Pyle and Drill Sergeant Hartman, don't even show up in the rest of the movie. It's essentially a separate short film. As a studio exec might point out, the story and characters don't impact the plot of the rest of the movie. It's peaks and valleys for an unrelated story. And Stanley Kubrick makes these unconventional pacing choices all the time. The Hal subplot in 2001: A Space Odyssey is another short film within a film, and that movie, along with most of Kubrick's catalog, has a lot more valleys than peaks. It's clear that in his movies, Kubrick didn't prioritize pacing or rhythm. On the contrary, he has no issue with disjointed, elongated movies. Like the flying scene in Avatar, he doesn't care if scenes are out of context or go for too long, and that choice helps us feel like his characters, whose repetition also leads them to their slow descent into madness, best characterized by the famous Kubrick stare. But how far can a director go? To be honest, I'm not always entirely sure how I feel about Kubrick's famously slow pace. Full Metal Jacket has an incredible short film within a film, but the rest of the movie does meander quite a bit. Is that creative choice a clever symbol for the meaninglessness of the Vietnam War itself, or does the choice hurt the story by making it too unfocused? That answer, like pacing itself, is impossible to fully resolve. But that's the beauty of Kubrick or Cameron's movies. No matter how I feel about them during a rewatch, I'm forever grateful that I got to see what the director wanted to see, not what some studio exec thought an audience would want. Pacing definitely matters, especially when a moment feels too rushed, or a scene drags out longer than it should. But I also think relying on pacing to explain a movie risks reducing storytelling to its purpose. If a filmmaker's primary concern is pacing, then every moment must exist for some objective reason, instead of because it's part of the filmmaker's vision. So for directors like Stanley Kubrick and James Cameron, good pacing is a requirement that is not only too restrictive, but it also doesn't matter. Or at least they don't worry about it, and for great directors, the problem seems to sort itself out. And James Cameron has definitely doubled down on this idea in Avatar: The Way of Water. Not only is the water sequence much longer than the flying sequence in Avatar 1, but it has even less of the conventional narrative or character advancement. They can't even talk.
When you're underwater, there's no dialogue. There may be nothing else but the music to tell you how to feel. Characters who are conflicted about what they should do next, but they can't go, oh, what do I do? Because they're underwater, so the music has to do that.
The purpose is to be present, to be in that world, to be enjoying what's happening, to sustain a feeling. So those flying scenes actually did have a big purpose. That's when Jake and Neytiri fell in love. And I got into a big fight with the studio.
One of the things I was thinking when I was watching Avatar was when I did Kill Bill, I had these grandiose visions in my head of the experience of watching the movie. And I actually wanted it to be more like a ride. I don't think I did that. And when I saw Avatar, I go, that's the ride. That's the ride I was trying to do.
The flying scene in Avatar 1 and the underwater scene in Avatar 2 show Cameron's mastery over his production, the combination of score, characterization, and special effects to create the ultimate ride. And these scenes didn't come to fruition because of some application of the textbook definition of pacing. It may not sound intuitive at first, but directors like Cameron and Kubrick don't really care about pacing. They care about what they want to see, and that itself creates a purpose. It doesn't always matter if that purpose goes against conventional peaks and valleys. Studio execs got Avatar wrong because they worked in the wrong direction. Purpose comes from what you want, not some screenwriting book or some pretentious video essay on pacing that tells you what to do. So good pacing isn't just about speed or action, it's about creating tension, balancing spectacle with emotional resonance, and earning the big payoffs through well-crafted setups. But when filmmakers get it right, even scenes that go against conventional wisdom can turn into the most memorable and most impactful moments in a movie. So when you watch a story unfold or write your own, remember that it doesn't have to check all the boxes of what makes a story well-paced. Instead, think like James Cameron, because I want to see it, now you see it. Let's go!
If Destiny don't invite me on, the other challenge is to everybody else, all my fellow anti-Destiny enjoyers. Until this mother pays the tuition to invite me on, do not talk to this
bro. Is this Destiny guy white? I was like, God damn, I had to go up on the Reddit to figure out. I'm basically trying to insinuate I'm like some kind of Uncle Tom or coon because you donated. I don't know.
Or you and every other black fan,
Yeah.
My own problems. I told these children, I gave them 5 rules a day. I said, graduate high school, further your education, get a trade of some type, if possible. Do not have children out of wedlock or until you're married. The other thing was live below your means and invest in property or stock. Ain't no messiahs coming out the sky. Sorry. Right. You know, the truth of it is we got to take care of us. I was raised by people who were born in 1922 and 1932. And they told me, because these people were born before social welfare, this is what you have to do. You take care of each other. Huey Newton said that, leaders don't decide how the revolution is going. It's the people. It's the people. So once the people start making that a habit, we get better. And if we as black people start doing the right thing economically, living below our means, not projecting this thing of richness, we'll start to enrich our lives by spending more time with our children. We'll start to set up for our grandchildren to be in a better place. But that takes what we told them.
And I got niggas in my fan base that are sub to me and Destiny. So Destiny, I know you're watching this. I will come on your stream after you donate $25K to community movement builders here in Atlanta to address the Stop Cop City movement. If you drop $25K, I will come on your stream and we can have the most banal argument. I will talk fast. I will be as edgy. I will get into 2008 FD real quick. I will find that energy. I will find that energy for you, Destiny, because you need content. And I've read your Reddit. They want me too. Your fans fucking love me. Oh, they want it so bad. I can start an OnlyFans off your fans. They want it so bad. So give them what they want. All you gotta do, you got the money. You're actually wealthy. You're actually wealthy. Drop the $25K, Destiny, and I will come debate you. I will come debate Destiny, Nebraska Steve, about black issues. Cause that's gonna be a riveting conversation. You know what? You're right. 50K. I'm selling myself short. If Destiny don't invite me on, the other challenge is to everybody else, all my fellow anti-Destiny enjoyers. Until this motherfucker pays the tuition to invite me on, do not talk to this nigga. Do not say shit to him. Do not subtweet him. And most importantly, don't go on this motherfucking stream. Let his channel die on the vine because he is not creative enough to do anything by himself. I honestly don't think it's racism. I think it's just like ego. They're black fans. Ooh, y'all Black Vosh and Destiny fans, I be seeing y'all. Y'all niggas are down bad. Listen, empathy, love. I be seeing y'all. Y'all niggas are down bad. Cause y'all, to a T, not all of them, but a chunk of them. Y'all were the black girls don't like me, not getting the line in, where's my hug ass niggas that could not make community with black people for whatever situation. Yes, they have black fans. Yes, they have black fans. Right? They have plenty. Nigga like me showed up and showed you the difference between the motherfuckers you've been hanging with and the possibility. The possibility of where you could be. And now there's an insecurity because you love your streamer daddy so much. But FD pointed out how racist they are, and now you can't fucking unsee it, can you? That's what he has. That's what he wants. That's what he needs from me.
Have you played the
So
game
Destiny,
ever?
I know you're
Seems
watching
apropos.
this.
Okay,
I will
bye.
Come on your stream. After you donate $25K to community movement builders here in Atlanta to address the Stop Cop City movement. If you drop
Well, Ian, thanks for the terrified sub.
I will come on your stream and we can have the most banal argument. I will talk fast. I will be as edgy. I will get into 2008 FD real quick. I will find that energy. I will find that energy for you, Destiny, because you need content. And I've read your Reddit. They want me to.
I'll do it for 10K. I'll do it for 10K. Tell him if he wants to do it for 10K. I'll do it for 10K. Not 25 though. He ain't worth that much. Hello?
Hey.
Hi, I'm streaming. What's up?
I saw that you were streaming.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna hit you up.
Yeah, I was just giving you a warning, so.
It's okay. Don't worry. I wasn't gonna be like, yo, say the N-word or something.
Okay, yeah, like we normally do, you know. So yeah, what's up?
Yeah. How come you surround yourself with so many coons?
Jesus Christ, just can you chill?
How come you surround yourself with so many Uncle Toms? What's going on there?
You know, I guess it just as being the powerful white man. I just, you know, that's what we do.
I've gotten 3 emails. I've gotten people like, yo, why are you supporting the Atlanta Police Department? I got people being like, bro, is this Destiny guy white? I'm like, god damn, what I had to go up on the Reddit to figure out what's going on. So you decided to be uber petty and support the police department?
Yeah, sure, why not? Fuck it.
Hey,
I had this guy has wanted, or we've talked about debating for a while, but he's always like, oh, like I'm too good for this guy, I'm never gonna waste my time. It's like, okay, whatever. But now for some reason something happened, something changed, and he's like, okay, I'll debate you, but if you want to debate me, you've got to donate $25,000 to my organization. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know who you are to demand that I donate $25,000 to some org to debate you. But I was like, if you make it 10,000, I'll do it. So then he says, okay, make it 10,000. I said, all right, well, unblock me and I'll do it. So he unblocks me, and then the next day he blocks me again immediately. And I'm like, I guess I had like a 12-hour window to donate. So I'm like, okay, well, fuck it. If I had like a 12-hour window, because this guy's so important, I guess he must not want my $10,000 too badly. So I'll just give it to the competing organization, which his org is like an anti-cop co-op or some bullshit. So I figured I'd donate the 10K to the cops instead. So fuck it.
Okay, I love the petty energy.
Yeah, I guess.
I do. Like, I'm a petty person. Be like, yo, be the better. I don't give a about none of that shit. Me, if they go low, I go lower. I'll literally just lie down flat on the. I don't give a fuck. Me. So I appreciate it.
Okay.
I just got one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is like the Atlanta Police Department terrible? Like I didn't even read up fully on this Cop City thing, so I'm not aware. But is it just some kind of giant facility where they're going to do training, and they're going to basically like house cops for special stuff? Like, what is wrong with this Cop City thing?
I have to do more research to find out why people are so fucking mad about it. But the reality is, and this might be a hot take, there aren't any really like super horrible police departments in the United States. There are some areas where people around and it's not good, but when it comes to like the major cities, if there was a major city with a horrible police department, like shit would be really fucked. So no, it's probably fine.
I don't know if I believe that.
Sure.
I don't think I would believe that. No. Okay, well, define to me what would be a really bad police department.
Like lynching black people and like nobody's getting charges for it, or like.
I feel like that standard's kind of bullshit. If that's your standard.
Well, that's
what is really bad. Then I don't know. To me.
Well, sure, but that's what the rhetoric in the United States is. Yeah, that's what it basically makes it sound.
Oh, racism doesn't exist because people don't go around lynching people. It's like no, there's like different forms that they can take. It doesn't have to be just that. You don't think so?
No, I mean, I would agree, but in the United States, if you talk to these activists online, they basically tell you like, yeah, black people can, or cops can kill black people with impunity and they never catch charges for it or whatever. That's essentially what they believe. You can go ask them. You don't have to. It sounds like I'm doing like a bad faith summary of what they believe, but this is literally what they believe. So.
Sure, there's definitely going to be the extreme part where they're actually. I think it's very common that if a police officer does anything, the assumed thing is that they were out to lynch a black man or kill them. Like those are always stupid. I always think about that case of that girl who was about to stab somebody, and then the cop showed up and shot her before she stabbed this other girl.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Like, oh, what the f-? You couldn't disarm her or shoot her in the arm? I'm like, you guys are retards. Like, yeah, he had to shoot her. And if that was your daughter, you would be ecstatic that he shot the other girl that was about to stab your daughter. I don't give a f-. Nobody says that black family whose daughter lived because the officer stopped the woman who's about to stab her are f***ing happy. You're just out here playing like armchair special ops. Shut the f*** up. So I definitely agree there's like a crazy side of it. But I would say your burden for what is like a terrible police department, I don't know, I just think like your burden of proof is a bit extreme to me.
Well, I mean, I would say that like
go ahead.
I would say like a bad police department is probably one that it has like a poor track record of holding itself accountable. Maybe abnormally low like clearance rates for certain crimes or bad response times or whatever. That's what I would consider to be like a bad police department. But in the United States, it's almost ubiquitously just like counted in lynchings, essentially. That's what it seems like online, at least.
Okay. Do you ever think that there are ways in which, let's see here. Let me give a concrete example so I don't just spout off some bullshit. Because I feel like now I'm going to, I should probably do some research for this before doing this. But I've definitely seen certain police departments where they had policies in place where they ensured themselves like to over police certain areas, irrespective of whether or not crime was happening at comparable rates. Like for example, they would make sure to heavily over police certain areas, obviously because crime was higher there. But even when in comparison to other areas that had less crime but still had some measure of it, there wasn't a proportional amount of policing there. And so even though these aren't necessarily bad police officers or people out to do harm, sometimes the ways in which they work systematically just seeks to, it doesn't seek to, but by the nature of what they're doing, it ends up being a matter of over-policing certain areas to the point where it feels like it just stigmatizes certain communities. Am I making sense when I say that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, like, this is what I would say, and it's going to depend a lot on the communities, but I think it's really important to look at the reasons why the police department claims they are policing certain communities. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that no police department isn't, like, acting improperly. I'm sure there are definitely examples, but I think sometimes there are also, like, counterintuitive examples to where, like certain places are policed really heavily, but there's like an underlying reason for it. So I can say here, so I don't know if you noticed, but when you were in Miami or Miami Beach, there's a lot of cops down here. Sure. Like if you're driving around, there are fucking cops everywhere, even though there's not as much crime proportionally, but because this is such a heavy tourist area, and I was told before I moved here, I could be wrong, but I was told before I moved here that like Miami in some areas is trying to crack down really hard on crime to like squash it out for where not terrorists, where tourists and stuff are visiting. Sure. That might be the explanation for why some parts in eastern Miami are getting over policed so hard right now. And like that kind of makes sense to me, right? You've got tourists coming in, the spring break shootings happen, so they police the out of like certain areas to try to like drive down the crime, and sometimes just having cop cars in areas dissuades people from f***ing around. So yeah,
sure, or they can respond to situations faster, which makes things a lot safer.
Sure, yeah,
I could definitely see that being a good thing. What about things like civil forfeiture? Like I know of a lot of police departments where, you know, like they make a substantial amount of money from being able to seize assets and then through civil forfeiture, being able to finance all things. You don't feel like it's not necessarily that cops are inherently bad, but because they're incentivized through budgeting purposes or through whatever their higher chain of command does in order to meet whatever quotas, that there may be ways in which police officers, not necessarily specific individual police officers, but police departments can be bad.
I mean, like, there are times where I can see, like, civil forfeiture isn't the worst thing in the world, and then there are other times where it honestly looks like the most shit in the world. So I feel like civil forfeiture is, I feel like it's one of those things that's not really good or bad. It's just sometimes it's used in really ways. Like, if there's, like, a crazy crime gang, like, using, you know, like, a drug car or whatever to do, like, these massive drug trades, and they've got a bunch of guns and shit, and that ends up getting, like, taken as part of an investigation and held onto forever by the cops. Like, I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but if it's, like, a guy gets pulled over and he's got some weed on him, and then, like, his car gets basically jacked by the cops, that seems really fucked. I'd have to go on a case-by-case or see, like, I'm sure there are instances, I'm almost positive I've read of instances of civil forfeiture where it's like, this is basically just, like, the cops robbing your shit. And then there are other instances where it's like, sure, I can understand why they do this.
I mean, I think the really weird part is like they take the money and then they get to use it for like police department stuff. Yeah, I think it's so bizarre to me. Like if something is used in the process of a crime, the idea that a police department who seized it can therefore afterwards use it for whatever they feel like is necessary for their budget is crazy. Because I just feel like that inherently incentivizes them